Hello, welcome back. We're meeting again for the reading of the book of Enoch from the books of the Ethiopian Bible of the Ethiopian Church. And where I left off last night was verse 41 through 50, from the time of the judges till the building of the temple. And sometimes their eyes were opened, and sometimes blinded, till another sheep arose and led them and brought them all back. And their eyes were opened, and the dogs and the foxes and the wild boars began to devour those sheep, till Jah of the sheep raised up another sheep, a ram from their midst, which led them. And that ram began to butt on either side those dogs, foxes, and wild boars, till he had destroyed them all. And that sheep, whose eyes were open, saw that ram, which was amongst the sheep, till it forsook its glory, and began to butt those sheep, and trampled upon them, and behaved itself unseemly. And Jah of the sheep sent the lamb to another lamb, and raised it to being a ram and leader of the sheep, instead of that ram which had forsaken its glory. And it went to it and spake to it alone, and raised it to being a ram, and made it the prince and leader of the sheep. But during all these things, those dogs oppressed the sheep. And the first ram pursued that second ram, and that second ram arose and fled before it. And I saw till those dogs pulled down the first ram. And that second ram arose and led the little sheep. And that ram begat many sheep and fell asleep. And a little sheep became ram in its stead, and became prince and leader of those sheep. And those sheep grew and multiplied. But all the dogs and foxes and wild boars feared and fled before it. And that ram butted and killed the wild beast. And those wild beasts had no longer any power among the sheep, and robbed them no more of aught. And that house became great and broad, and it was built for those sheep. And a tower lofty and great was built on the house for Jah of the sheep. And that house was low, but the tower was elevated and lofty. And Jah of the sheep stood on that tower, and they offered a full table before him. Verse 51 through 67. The two kingdoms of Israel and Judah to the destruction of Jerusalem. And again I saw those sheep, that they again erred and went many ways, and forsook that their house. And Jah of the sheep called some from amongst the sheep, and sent them to the sheep. But the sheep began to slay them. And one of them was saved, and was not slain. And it sped away and cried aloud over the sheep. And they sought to slay it. But Jah of the sheep saved it from the sheep, and brought it up to me, and caused it to dwell there. And many other sheep he sent to those sheep, to testify unto them and lament over them. And after that I saw that when they forsook that house of Jah and his tower, they fell away entirely, and their eyes were blinded. And I saw Jah of the sheep, how he wrought much slaughter amongst them in their herds, until those sheep invited that slaughter and betrayed his place. And he gave them over into the hands of the lions and tigers, and wolves and hyenas, and into the hand of the foxes, and to all the wild beasts. And those wild beasts began to tear in pieces those sheep. And I saw that he forsook that their house and their tower, and gave them all into the hands of the lions, to tear and devour them, into the hand of all the wild beasts. And I began to cry aloud with all my power, and to appeal to Jah of the sheep, and to present to him in regard to the sheep, that they were devoured by all the wild beasts. But he remained unmoved, though he saw it, and rejoiced that they were devoured and swallowed and robbed, and left them to be devoured in the hand of all the beasts. And he called 70 shepherds, and cast those sheep to them, that they might pasture them. And he spake to the shepherds and their companions, let each individual of you pasture the sheep henceforward, and everything that I shall command you, that do ye. And I will deliver them over unto you duly numbered, and tell you which of them are to be destroyed, and them destroy ye. And he gave over unto them those sheep. And he called another, and spake unto him, observe and mark everything that the shepherds will do to those sheep, for they will destroy more of them than I have commanded them. And every excess and the destruction which will be wrought through the shepherds, record namely how many they destroy according to my command, and how many according to their own caprice. Record against every individual shepherd all the destruction he effects, and read out before me by number how many they destroy, and how many they deliver over for destruction. And I may have this as a testimony against them, and know every deed of the shepherds, that I may comprehend and see what they do, whether or not they abide by my command which I have commanded them. But they shall not know it, and thou shalt not declare it to them, nor admonish them, but only record against each individual all the destruction which the shepherds effect, each in his time, and lay it all before me. And I saw till those shepherds pastured in their season, and they began to slay and to destroy more than they were bidded. And they delivered those sheep into the hand of the lions. And the lions and tigers eat and devoured the greater part of those sheep. And the wild boars eat along with them. And they burnt that tower and demolished that house. And I became exceedingly sorrowful over that tower, because that house of the sheep was demolished. And afterwards I was unable to see if those sheep entered that house. Verse 67 through 71. First period of the angelic rulers, from the destruction of Jerusalem to the return from the captivity. And the shepherds and their associates delivered over those sheep to all the wild beasts to devour them. And each of them received in his time a definite number. It was written by the other in a book, how many each one of them destroyed of them. And each one slew and destroyed many more than was prescribed. And I began to weep and lament on account of those sheep. And thus in the vision I saw that one who wrote, how he wrote down every one that was destroyed by those shepherds, day by day, and carried up and laid down, and showed actually the whole book of Jah of the sheep, even everything that they had done, and all that each one of them had made away with, and all that they had given over to destruction. And the book was read before Jah of the sheep. And he took the book from his hand and read it and sealed it and laid it down. Verse 72 through 77, second period, from the time of Cyrus to that of Alexander the Great. And forthwith I saw how the shepherds pastured for 12 hours. And behold, 3 of those sheep turned back and came and entered and began to build up all that had fallen down of that house. But the wild boars tried to hinder them, but they were not able. And they began again to build as before, and they reared up that tower, and it was named the High Tower. And they began again to place a table before the tower, but all the bread on it was polluted and not pure. And as touching all this, the eyes of those sheep were blinded, so that they saw not, and the eyes of all their shepherds likewise. And they delivered them in large numbers to their shepherds for destruction. And they trampled the sheep with their feet and devoured them. And jaw of the sheep remained unmoved, till all the sheep were dispersed over the field and mingled with them the beast. And they, the shepherds, did not save them out of the hand of the beast. And this one who wrote the book carried it up and showed it and read it before Jah of the sheep, and implored him on their account, and besought him on their account, as he showed him all the doings of the shepherds, and gave testimony before him against all the shepherds. And he took the actual book and laid it down beside him and departed. Enoch 88, verse 1 through 3, third period, from Alexander the Great to the Greco-Syrian domination. And I saw till that in this manner 35 shepherds undertook the pasturing of the sheep, and they severely completed their periods as did the first, and others received them into their hands to pasture them for their period, each shepherd in his own period. And after that I saw in my vision all the birds of heaven coming, the eagles, the vultures, the kites, the ravens. But the eagles led all the birds, and they began to devour those sheep, and to pick out their eyes, and to devour their flesh. And the sheep cried out because their flesh was being devoured by the birds. And as for me, I looked and lamented in my sleep over that shepherd who pastured the sheep. And I saw until those sheep were devoured by the dogs and eagles and kites. And they left neither flesh nor skin, nor sinew remaining on them, till only their bones stood there. And their bones too fell to the earth, and the sheep became few. And I saw until that 23 had undertaken the pasturing and completed in their several periods 58 times. Verse 6 through 12, fourth period, from the Greco-Syrian domination to the Maccabean revolt. But behold, lambs were born by those white sheep, and they began to open their eyes and to see, and to cry to the sheep. Yea, they cried to them, but they did not hearken to what they said to them, but were exceedingly deaf, and their eyes were very exceedingly blinded. And I saw in the vision how the ravens flew upon those lambs and took one of those lambs and dashed the sheep in pieces and devoured them. And I saw till horns grew upon those lambs, and the ravens cast down their horns. And I saw till there were sprouted a great horn of one of those sheep, and their eyes were opened. And it looked at them, and their eyes opened. And it cried to the sheep, and the rams saw it, and all ran to it. And notwithstanding all this, those eagles and vultures and ravens and kites still kept tearing the sheep and swooping down upon them and devouring them. Still the sheep remained silent, but the rams lamented and cried out. And those ravens fought and battled with it, and sought to lay low its horn, but they had no power over it. Verse 13 through 19, the last assault of the Gentiles on Judah. And I saw till the shepherds and eagles and those vultures and kites came, and they cried to the ravens that they should break the horn of that ram. And they battled and fought with it, and it battled with them and cried that its help might come. And I saw till that man who wrote down the names of the shepherds and carried up into the presence of Jah of the sheep came and helped it and showed it everything. He had come down for the help of that ram. And I saw till Jah of the sheep came unto them in wrath, and all who saw him fled, and they all fell into his shadow from before his face. All the eagles and vultures and ravens and kites were gathered together, and there came with them all the sheep of the field. Yea, they all came together, and each helped each other to break that horn of the ram. And I saw that man who wrote the book according to the command of Jah, till he opened that book concerning the destruction which those 12 last shepherds had wrought, and showed that they had destroyed much more than their predecessors before Jah of the sheep. And I saw till Jah of the sheep came unto them, and took in his hand the staff of his wrath, and smote the earth, and the earth clave asunder, and all the beasts and all the birds of heaven fell from among those sheep, and were swallowed up in the earth, and it covered them. And I saw till a great sword was given to the sheep, and the sheep proceeded against all the beasts of the field to slay them, and all the beasts and the birds of the heaven fled before their face. Verse 20 through 27, judgment of the fallen angels, the shepherds, and the apostates. And I saw till a throne was erected in the pleasant land, and Jah of the sheep sat himself thereon. And the other took the sealed books and opened those books before Jah of the sheep. And Jah called those men the 7 first white ones, and commanded that they should bring before him, beginning with the first star which led the way, all the stars whose privy members were like those of horses, and they brought them all before him. And he said to that man who wrote before him, being one of those 7 white ones, and said unto him, take those 70 shepherds to whom I delivered the sheep, and who, taking them on their own authority, slew more than I commanded them. And behold, they were all bound. I saw, and they all stood before him. And the judgment was held first over the stars, and they were judged and found guilty, and went to the place of condemnation. And they were cast into an abyss, full of fire and flaming, and full of pillars of fire. And those 70 shepherds were judged and found guilty. And they were cast into that fiery abyss. And I saw at that time how a like abyss was opened in the midst of the earth, full of fire. And they brought those blinded sheep, and they were all judged and found guilty, and cast into this fiery abyss, and they burned. Now this abyss was to the right of that house. And I saw those sheep burning, and their bones burning. Verse 28 through 38. The New Jerusalem, the conversion of the surviving Gentiles, the resurrection of the righteous, and the Messiah. And I stood up to see till they folded up that old house, and carried off all the pillars, and all the beams and ornaments of the house were at the same time folded up with it. And they carried it off and laid it in a place in the north of the land. And I saw till Jah of the sheep brought a new house greater and loftier than that first, and set it up in the place of the first, which had been folded up. All its pillars were new, and its ornaments were new and larger than those of the first. The old one which he had taken away, and all the sheep were within it. And I saw all the sheep which had been left, and all the beasts on the earth, and all the birds of heaven, falling down and doing homage to those sheep, and making petition to and obeying them in everything. And thereafter those 3 who were clothed in white had seized me by my hand, who had taken me up before, and the hand of that ram also seizing hold of me. They took me up and set me down in the midst of those sheep before the judgment took place. And those sheep were all white, and their wool was abundant and clean. And all that had been destroyed and dispersed, and all the beasts of the field, and all the birds of the heaven, assembled in that house. And Jah of the sheep rejoiced with great joy, because they were all good and had returned to his house. And I saw till they laid down that sword which had been given to the sheep, and they brought it back into the house, and it was sealed before the presence of Jah. And all the sheep were invited into that house, but it held them not. And the eyes of them were all opened, and they saw the good, and there was not one among them that did not see. And I saw that house was large and broad and very full. And I saw that a white bull was born, with large horns, and all the beasts of the field and all the birds of the air feared him, and made petition to him all the time. And I saw till all their generations were transformed, and they all became white bulls. And the first among them became a lamb, and that lamb became a great animal, and had great black horns on its head. And Jah of the sheep rejoiced over it, and over all the oxen. And I slept in their midst, and I awoke and saw everything. This is the vision which I saw while I slept. And I awoke and blessed Jah of righteousness, and gave him glory. Then I wept with a great weeping, and my tears stayed not, till I could no longer endure it. When I saw, they flowed on account of what I had seen, for everything shall come and be fulfilled. And all the deeds of men in their order were shown to me. On that night I remembered the first dream, and because of it I wept and was troubled, because I had seen that vision. The book written by Enoch. Enoch indeed wrote this complete doctrine of wisdom, which is praised of all men, and a judge of all the earth, for all my children who shall dwell on the earth, and for the future generations who shall observe uprightness and peace. Let not your spirit be troubled on account of the times. For the Holy and Great One has appointed days for all things. And the righteous one shall arise from sleep, shall arise and walk in the paths of righteousness. And all his path and conversation shall be in eternal goodness and grace. He will be gracious to the righteous and give him eternal uprightness. And he will give him power, so that he shall be endowed with goodness and righteousness. And he shall walk in eternal light. And sin shall perish in darkness forever, and shall no more be seen from that day forevermore. And now, my son Methuselah, call to me all thy brothers, and gather together to me all the sons of thy mother. For the word calls me, and the Spirit is poured out upon me. that I may show you everything that shall befall you forever. And thereupon Methuselah went and summoned to him all his brothers and assembled his relatives. And he spake unto the children of righteousness and said, Hear ye, sons of Enoch, all the words of your father, and hearken aright to the voice of my mouth. For I exhort you and say unto you, beloved, love uprightness and walk therein, and draw not nigh to uprightness with a double heart, and associate not with those of a double heart, but walk in righteousness, my sons, and it shall guide you on good paths, and righteousness shall be your companion. For I know that violence must increase on the earth, and a great chastisement be executed on the earth, and all unrighteousness come to an end. Yea, it shall be cut off from its roots, and its whole structure be destroyed. And unrighteousness shall again be consummated on the earth, and all the deeds of unrighteousness and of violence and transgression shall prevail in a twofold degree. And when sin and unrighteousness and blasphemy and violence and all kinds of deeds increase, and apostasy and transgression and uncleanness increase, a great chastisement shall come from heaven upon all these. And the Holy Lord will come forth with wrath and chastisement to execute judgment on earth. In those days, violence shall be cut off from its roots, and the roots of unrighteousness together with deceit, and they shall be destroyed from under heaven. And all the idols of the heathen shall be abandoned, and the temples burned with fire, and they shall remove them from the whole earth. And they, the heathen, shall be cast into the judgment of fire, and shall perish in wrath and in grievous judgment forever. And the righteous shall arise from their sleep, and wisdom shall arise and be given unto them. And after that, the roots of unrighteousness shall be cut off, and the sinner shall be destroyed by the sword, shall be cut off from the blasphemers in every place, and those who plan violence and those who commit blasphemy shall perish by the sword. And now I tell you, my sons, and show you the paths of righteousness and the paths of violence. Yea, I will show them to you again, that ye may know what will come to pass. And now hearken unto me, my sons, and walk in the paths of righteousness, and walk not in the paths of violence. For all who walk in the paths of unrighteousness will perish forever. And after that, Enoch gave and began to recount from the books. And Enoch said, concerning the children of righteousness, and concerning the elect of the world, and concerning the plant of uprightness, I will speak these things. Yea, I, Enoch, will declare them unto you, my sons, according to that which appeared to me in the heavenly vision, and which I have known through the word of the holy angels, and have learnt from the heavenly tablets. And Enoch began to recount from the books and said, I was born the 7th in the 1st week, while judgment and righteousness still endured. And after me there shall arise in the 2nd week great wickedness, and deceit shall have sprung up. And in it there shall be the first end, and in it a man shall be saved. And after it is ended, unrighteousness shall grow up, and a law shall be made for the sinners. And after that, in the 3rd week, at its close, a man shall be elected as the plant of righteous judgment, and his posterity shall become the plant of righteousness forevermore. And after that, in the 4th week, at its close, visions of the holy and righteous shall be seen, and a law for all generations, and an enclosure shall be made for them. And after that, in the 5th week, at its close, the house of glory and dominion shall be built forever. And after that, in the 6th week, all who live in it shall be blinded, and the hearts of all of them shall godlessly forsake wisdom. And in it a man shall ascend. And at its close the house of dominion shall be burnt with fire, and the whole race of the chosen root shall be dispersed. And after that, in the 7th week, shall an apostate generation arise, and many shall be its deeds, and all its deeds shall be apostate. And at its close shall be elected the elect righteous of the eternal plant of righteousness, to receive sevenfold instruction concerning all his creation. For who is there of all the children of men that is able to hear the voice of the Holy One without being troubled? And who can think his thoughts? And who is there that can behold all the works of heaven? And how should there be one who could behold the heaven? And who is there that could understand the things of heaven, and see a soul or a spirit, and could tell thereof? Or ascend and see all their ends, and think them, or do like them? And who is there of all men that could know, what is the breadth and the length of the earth? And to whom has been shown the measure of all of them? Or is there anyone who could discern the length of the heaven, and how great it is its height, and upon what it is founded, and how great is the number of the stars, and where all the luminaries rest? So I will complete the reading for the midnight reading. I'll stop at Enoch 92. So we're getting through it pretty good. We're at Enoch 92. And we will read up to 106. So I want to thank you for joining. And I think someone said, was it you, Tina, that you'd like to read, is it Jubilees or Maccabees? Let me know which book you might want to read next. This is kind of a little book club, right? I felt called, like I've told you all if you're just joining. Hey, Sharion, nice to see you. I've had this implanted into my mind to read the book out loud, the book of Enoch. So it was really pressing on me to do. And I'm really happy that I can experience this with you because I'm getting a lot from it. I hope you are, as we listen to the frequencies of the trumpets, the shofars. At this point, like I told you yesterday, I have to read now the book of Enoch with that frequency playing, the trumpets. If I didn't hear that, I don't know. I've gotten accustomed to it, everyone, and I'm glad that you've enjoyed listening to the trumpets in the background. So yeah, it helps me to read the book. Maybe I'm just nervous because I've never read this book, okay? And some of the words are a little bit cumbersome, but Jah is giving me grace to get through it, and the trumpets are helping me. So some of you might understand a lot of that type of learning stuff. You might be teachers out there. Maybe you can explain why I'm able to read this book that I've never read before, publicly, but needing to hear these trumpets. They're relaxing me. So it's all working. And yes, so thank you again. I will check back in with you. I hope you have a wonderful time of rest for your body and mind and spirit. And I hope that your dreams are full of wisdom and grace and instruction for you, answers and all the things that you need. So God bless you all. And I will be reading, picking back up. If you want to follow, if you want to pre-read, I stopped at Enoch 92. All right. So take care. I'll get some rest and get back into it and reconnect with you, okay? We'll meet each other in our dreams, right? Maybe, I don't know. Don't get mad at me. I don't know if that's biblical or not. But anyway, it's just a fun thought. Okay, take care.